Hey guys, and welcome to the Seam Circle. My name is Kat, and today I'm going to show you how to print and assemble your very own seam circle paper pattern. All you're going to need today is obviously access to a printer and some tape and scissors. If you are anything like me, I do have a printer at home, but I hate it so much. So if I ever want to print a pattern, I always just make a trip down the road to Officeworks. It is really cheap and so easy. I find that I actually don't have to change any settings on the Officeworks printer. It always comes out perfect. But if you're unsure when you do print, there is a test square on our very first page. So I would always start by printing the first page first, checking the measurements on the test square, and then if it's all good, you can print the rest of the pattern knowing that everything is to scale. So you'll find that your seam circle patterns are made into rows. So here we have row A and then row B and so on. The way you'll know that your pieces are up the right way is obviously if your B2 is upside down in the bottom corner, that is incorrect. We need to have all of your numbers and letters up the right way in the right hand corner. I'm actually going to start by assembling row A, and to be honest, it's pretty straightforward. All that has to happen is that these lines need to match up. Obviously, if I go to tape them without cutting anything off, that doesn't look right. So we're gonna start with this edge here, and all I'm gonna do is cut off the left edge of A2. So as you can see, I haven't cut anything off the edges of A1 because we want to have something that we can stick A2 onto. And then all I'm going to do is line up the edges. This one doesn't matter too much because it's actually not joining any pattern pieces, but it's also just important to get everything right. Otherwise it might throw some other pieces out of whack. As you can see here, I've lined up everything so that the circle matches at the bottom there, because that circle is going to be the joining point for so many pieces. And now I'll do the same on A3. So I'll cut off the left edge. So I obviously try and match up my circle down the bottom, but far more importantly, I make sure that all of the size lines match up there. Tape it down, and then I do the circle down the bottom. So now that row A is complete, I'm going to start on row B. On B1, I'm just going to cut off the top edge. And just like A1, I'm not going to cut off any sides from B1. I'm going to leave them so that I have something to attach B2 to. And just like before, I'm making sure that those beautiful size lines all match up. And then I'm going to cut the top and the left edge of B2. So just like A2, but I'm starting to cut off the top edge of these ones as well. B2 is kind of important. It's got a lot of things that need to be matched up here. As much as I know you probably can't wait to start sewing, because I also can't wait to start sewing. This is definitely the boring part. But try and take your time because it'll just be so much more worth it when you're cutting out your size. So I went ahead and also cut off the top and left side of B3 and attached that. So now that row B is complete, I'm going to repeat the exact same steps that I followed for row B for row C. And as you can see, my entire pattern for today has been assembled. A few things to take note of before you cut out your size is firstly, this is the garment that I'm sewing today. This is the pattern for our Iris drawstring camisole. But all of our patterns should look fairly similar once you've assembled them. They just might be slightly bigger or smaller in terms of how many A4 sheets you've had to assemble. The next thing to have a look at is the body measurements and size conversions. So have a look at the relevant measurements for the piece that you're making. For example, today I'm making a top, So the only relevant measurements will be the bust and waist measurement, so I can measure myself and figure out which size suits my body best. And the next one is if you're from another country and Australian sizes are something you're not familiar with, you can figure out the conversion of your sizes in comparison to ours. So once you know what size you want to cut out, go ahead and find the dotted line. Today I'm going to be cutting a size 10. So I will find this little line, which is in here, and I'm simply just going to cut all the way around that pattern piece following the dotted line, and I'll do the same for the back and the same for the tie. As you can see with the tie piece, the dotted lines are only on the edge here, so for everything else I will follow the solid line. Okay, and there we have our 3 pattern pieces ready to be used to cut out and sew with. If you found that there are any parts where the paper joins that aren't stuck down properly, I would just go back in with some tape. Luckily, mine seemed to all be pretty good. If you hate the assembly process of these pattern pieces, I recommend that you use the AO option, which means all you have to do is print it in one big sheet and then you can cut out the piece you want to use. But I personally don't mind assembling all the pages together. It's somewhat therapeutic and kind of fun. It feels like putting together a little puzzle. The other thing I forgot to mention is that this process is the same for US letter. Obviously, the pages will be a different size, but obviously we're still assembling everything the same way. Thank you so much for coming along on this tutorial of the assembly of my pattern pieces for the seam circle. I can't wait to see what you guys create using my patterns.